This morning we are going Exodus 18, 19, and 20. And 20, of course, Exodus 20 is the place where we find what you and I call the Ten Commandments. Actually, the Hebrew calls it the 10 words. And one of the early Greek translations of what we call the Ten Commandments was called, they translated into Greek, the Decalogoi. Logos is word, deca is 10, so Decalogue is actually a much better description of it, the 10 words. And so they invented that English word. We think of it as an English word. It's just a Greek word that's Englishified, Decalogue. Let's open this morning with prayer. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the joy of this fall that has come in and is resting so sweetly on our shoulders this morning. We thank you for the joy of this beautiful time of the year, and we thank you for this time as we approach Mount Sinai with your people. We thank you for the joys and pleasures of this reading, and especially for understanding the foundation of our faith and all the things that everybody in the New Testament is talking about, understanding their vocabulary, understanding who they are, and understanding especially what you are doing in sending your servant Moses and calling him forth, and in sending that greater Moses, Jesus our Lord. We give you this time in his name. Amen. All right, Exodus chapter 18 this morning. Now, remember we ended last week with a kind of a forward-looking battle. The only battle in Exodus, really two battles. The battle of God with the Pharaoh, that ends at the plagues and the Exodus. God wins that battle. And then we saw the stories about feeding the people out in the wilderness. We had three stories, two water stories, and then the manna and the quail story. And then we ended with another battle story, the story of Amalek. So that was the end of chapter 17. So now today, we have one more story of an encounter that really sets up Moses and leading the people on to the Sinai, Mount Sinai. Remember, Sinai and Horeb, these are interchangeable names, two names for the same place, this mount. In what we call the Sinai Peninsula. Even today, although nobody knows exactly, cannot identify exactly what that mountain is, but that mountain is, in a way, we're coming up to the mountain. The story of the mountain in the Exodus, if you think about your Pentateuch, the first 5 books of your Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, this time now, when we get to the brink of chapter 19, when we get to the brink of the mountain, we're at, so to speak, the high point of the whole of the Torah. And in a way, everything that's in the beginning, from Genesis up to now, to Exodus 19, looks forward to this moment when God came down. Think about that. The moment when God came down. What do you and I celebrate as Christians? We celebrate the miracle of when God came down into the world. Well, it happened before. And the God coming down that you and I celebrate is an expansion, is it a spelling out of that previous one. But the previous one was the one that astounded the world and that the Jews continue to sort of sit around and marvel. Well, the whole of this first 5 books, which the Jews called God's law, the Torah, kind of looks up to the mount of this chapter, at chapters 19 and 20. Everything that follows after this, from now until the end of Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, is a spelling out of what happens on this mountain that we come to the brink of today. So I just want you to realize the storyteller wants us to understand this is important. And so I just want to try to emphasize that for you as well. So now, Exodus chapter 18. But so we have one more story before we get there. Jethro, remember him? The father-in-law of Moses, and that's the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, how Yahweh had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent his wife Zipporah away, what? Do you remember that? When did that happen? After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro took her back along with her 2 sons. The name of the one was Gershom, For he said, I have been an alien. Ger means alien or stranger, foreigner. An alien in a foreign land. And the name of the other, Eliezer. Eli means my God. Etzer is helper. My God is a helper. Incidentally, in Genesis, when God says, it's not good for the man to be alone, I'll make him another helper. It's this word, Etzer, E-Z-E-R. Etzer, it means a helper. And it's almost always in every other place, means God helping. Well, in this case, when God gave the woman, that was God helping. God said, I can't take care of everything for you. I need to give you one like me who will be with you. See, so anyway. Anyway, back to this story, though. And the name of the other son was Eliezer. Eliezer, for he said, the God of my father was my help. And he delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Okay, now when was that? Well, we'll talk about that. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came into the wilderness where Moses was encamped at the mountain of God, bringing Moses' sons and wife to him. He sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed down and kissed him. Each asked after the other's welfare, literally his shalom, his peace. Each asked after the other's welfare, and they went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all that that Yahweh had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had beset them on the way, and how Yahweh had delivered them. So now notice how pleasant this story is, and lots of commentators like to make a point of the neat antithesis between you have this battle story of Amalek, and now, which in a way says God's going to fight for us, and we saw Joshua coming to the fore for a little bit, so another forward-looking moment. But now, right against this, the hostile foreigners, the hostile outside nation, we have a reminder that Moses and the people have this beautiful interaction with this other outsider, the Midianite Jethro. Now the Midianites in other places, they do show up in a few other places. They're just mentioned in Genesis as descending from Abraham by another one of his wives, one named Keturah. But there's not really any other stories except this. He's a Midianite, and he's obviously the leader of a Midianite clan. And we know that he's in good relations with Moses because he's his father-in-law. He gave him his daughter. But again, remember we saw the stark contrast when Moses went away taking the daughter and sons, how generous he was, unlike Laban, who had tried to in effect kind of trap Jacob and keep him with all his grandchildren at home with him. Jethro says, you go. God has called you, has a mission for you. You go do what you want to do. So we just have this beautiful kind of counterpoint of this story. And as much as that other one is marched by hostility, this one is marched by, as Italian commentator Umberto Cassuto says, by understanding, mutual respect, and we'll see in a moment, the giving of sage counsel. The Midianites later become antagonistic to the Israelites when they realize they're moving into the neighborhood, so to speak. Think about the story of Gideon is a story of the Israelites having to fight against the Midianites. And Jethro, anyway, but we know Jethro and his clan at least are together with the Israelites. Now what about this, about Zipporah and her sons? We don't remember a story, and there's not one, of Moses sending the wife and daughter back. Well, so this is part of the Jewish Midrash tradition. Of course, the Jewish rabbis teaching this story got tired of answering this question over and over. Oh, really? Now, how did that happen? When did that? So they, as they lovely do, invent these lovely little stories. And one of the lovely little stories is a story about, you remember that when Moses went back, Aaron, his brother, he hadn't seen him 40 years, did come out and meet him. And they had this beautiful little reunion. Well, one of the rabbinic stories, a midrash, is of Aaron coming out. And the story says Aaron and Moses had a little conversation. And Aaron said, You're taking these back with you to Egypt? We're already sorrowing over all the wives and children who are back there. You're going to make some more with these two? That's nonsense, Moses. Send her back home until the danger is over. So that's how he got back, according to the rabbinic tradition. Robert Alter relates that one. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, there must have been some time when Moses said, you go back. Of course, it could have been after the Exodus. They might have gone through it, but it makes more sense to say, It might have been before the plague started when Moses realized the danger is being ratcheted up. But so anyway, so now the family reunion that's how she got back home with her father, and now he brings him back. So in other words, another just very good, generous thing of Jethro saying, y'all have to be together. Let me bring you back here. And an interesting thing that we're reminded of then, the storyteller tells us, and he brought along the 2 sons. And at this point in the story, the naming of the 2 sons really says a lot to us. It sort of sets up 2 pins of Moses' whole experience, you know. When he went out from Pharaoh, remember, he'd grown up in the posh quarters of the Pharaoh. What a wonderful time that had been for him. You know, he has prospects of, I'm going to be a mighty ruler in Egypt, the most powerful and suddenly he goes out, he gets entangled with his people. He has this memory, no doubt his mom, when he grew up, had told him all the stories of the Hebrews, so he knows this about himself, but he's kind of suppressed it as part of his identity. But suddenly it pops up, and it pops up in this awful way. You're a Hebrew and you're a murderer. And suddenly the last of that story was, remember, and Pharaoh heard about it and he sought to kill Moses. Well, that's probably, most commentators say, is what the reference is. He rescued me from the sword of Pharaoh. Probably that moment when he realized Pharaoh's now got a death warrant out for me. But just think about the names of the 2 boys. Gershom. I knew a lovely man from Ethiopia at Princeton Seminary. Gershom was there studying for a PhD, and at the time, I probably hadn't read my Old Testament. I thought, Gershom, where does that come from? And of course, the sweet man about this tall, he said, from the Scriptures. And oh, sorry, you know. And, Gershom, I guess I'd better go do my Bible reading again, you know. So anyway, but Gershom, yeah, so Moses' son. Ger means a stranger, a foreigner, alien. And the story tells us when Moses named him that, it was out of his experience, you know. I'm an outsider. I'm an alien. And in a way, see how God was prepping him, was preparing him. He didn't go through all of the things that the slaves went through while he was growing up. He hasn't shared their experiences. He's only just barely touched it when right before he was run off. So this experience that he has out in Midian is his time to kind of catch up with his people and to realize this is what it's like to be a foreigner, an outsider, in a place where everybody shares so much good things, but you don't. You're not part of it. So that's how he started out, outsider. I'm an outsider, a stranger in a strange land. But then Eliezer, and of course he obviously named this one in hope. Things had looked up for him. And the best thing was he met Jethro. And he met Jethro through his own just sort of native courage. He didn't plan this. He went down there and he saw the bullies trying to run off Jethro's daughters, drawing water. Moses went down and just sort of out of natural human intuition just said, this isn't right. This is unjust. And he himself battled the bullies and ran them off. And then the women invited him home at their dad's encouragement. What? You didn't invite him home for supper? What, are you crazy? Bring him back home and eat with us. And so, but that's Jethro, the one who said that. No, you have to invite him to supper already. That's his nature. And so he's the one who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses. But now Eliezer, now how much more that expresses. Eliezer, Eli, my God, is a help. My God is a help. That's what the name means. The storyteller spells it out even more. My God, my Father's God is my help. Well, that's sort of the education of Moses. He's learned that his father's God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and of of all of his ancestors, that is the God who has remembered his people and who's come to him and been his help. So, and a beautiful little story thing, just in saying they had this family reunion in a way, when Moses being reunited with his sons is a lovely literary way of expressing now, this is the person of Moses now, this person who stands between, I know what it's like to be an outsider, and I know the powerful help of my God, who is in fact the God of my father, the God of my people. So just a wonderful thing. And then they went into the tent. You know, what's missing from here is we want Moses and Zipporah to have a big smoochy scene themselves. There's nothing about her at all. You know, we don't read anything, and there's really nothing about her in the rest of the whole rest of the story. So that's for us to make up. And so, the rabbis make up the rest of it. Americans make up the smoochy part of, the part that'll get it on TV, but that's not in here. So, but anyway, so they went into the tent. Again, a very ritual kind of thing. This is what Abraham does when he receives foreigners, when he receives guests who are unknown to him. They go into the tent, and there's a little ceremonial meal of welcome there. And Moses, now notice, and a lot of Christian commentators don't know what to do with Jethro. He never becomes a Jew. He both praises Moses' God, but he never, says, and now your God is my God. I will become one of your people. That doesn't happen. He remains a blessing and blessed outsider. And in a way, he kind of says both things to us. Notice Moses is a good example. He tells what God has done for him, and he tells how God has saved him out of all of these hardships. So Moses is a wonderful witnessing example. And yet, this story, in a way, is one of the main stories that, every Christian young person who goes off to college, if they haven't done it sooner, when they start thinking, whatever that time in late high school or college years, they start thinking, but what about the people who don't know Jesus? What about the people on the outside? And notice that Jethro, in a way, is the shining example in the Old Testament. We don't think about him much, but he's a person who stands. Gerald Jansen says he's a liminal figure for the covenant people. He stands on the threshold. Yes, he's willing to step in and to say, this is beautiful, wonderful, and to bless and even share the covenant meal with people there. But he also belongs to this community, and he goes home. And Numbers 10, at the end of this Sinai experience, 59 chapters later, Moses will try to encourage Jethro, you come with us. We need a guide out here in the desert. But Jethro says, no, you have your things, and I'm going on. Jethro goes back to Midian. He, in effect, is the pastor of his people. He's a priest, we know that. So he has his own place. But so let's read on to the end of this little encounter here. Jethro, verse 9, rejoiced for all the good that Yahweh had done to Israel in delivering them from the Egyptians. Jethro said, blessed be Yahweh, who has delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh. Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all gods, because he delivered the people from the Egyptians when they dealt arrogantly with them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. So that question, is Jethro converted? It's hard to tell. And you could make a case for any way. He confesses Israel's God. Now I know that the God of, that Yahweh is the God of, is stronger than all the other gods, that he's greater than all the other gods because of what he's done. And yet he doesn't, he didn't share in the Exodus. He won't share in the time at Sinai. He doesn't go on with the people to enter the promised land. Jethro does show the response, though, that Yahweh was looking for from Egypt and from all the nations. He said at the time of the plagues, I'm doing this so that all nations will know that I, Yahweh, am greater than all the gods of the nations. But anyway, this beautiful picture of Jethro, free of envy, able to love others, to bless others, and to rejoice with them. He brings two offerings. Notice it says a burnt offering and sacrifices. These are two separate things, but they enter the tradition of Israel after this. Two kinds of offerings. The burnt offering, olah. This is an offering then that is offered completely to God, and that means burnt to pieces, burnt completely up. But then there's another one, then the one that said, and sacrifices. And this is a sacrifice. I don't want to be disrespectful of this, but the easiest way to think of this is the barbecue offering. This is the grilled offering. In the, there's the offering, it really is a grill that's in there. The altar, as they call it, the burnt offering altar, really is a grill. And if you think about the priests, You know, they don't get any land, they don't farm, they don't work. How do they get fed? And this continues true even through to the temple. How do they get fed? Well, the answer is they eat of the offerings that are brought. And so here's one of those things. So they burn up part of the offering that Jethro brings. The rest of it, they cook. They grill, they roast, and then they eat it. And so, and notice there's a lot here. The elders and Aaron all come and eat. Now notice it says they ate bread with Moses' father-in-law. Some commentators have kind of get rankled over this because eat bread. Well, now wait, if they had bread, why were they griping to Yahweh about, well, we're going to get bread to eat out here? Or does eat bread mean, well, they ate manna together? Well, that's a possibility. A better one, or a simpler one to me, Robert Alter says, well, this is eat bread in the sense of, as a literary term, is a synecdoche, a part for the whole. Eating bread as a part for sharing a whole meal with someone. In other words, referring to the whole of this ceremonial meal that Jethro brought and supplied. Jethro brought the supplies, and they all ate out of what he brought for the meal. In other words, this eating bread, like when a person said, well, will you stay and break bread with us? Well, okay, they don't mean we're going to go in the house and once I've broken a piece of bread and given it to you, I'm going to say, thank you. I guess you have to go now. You know, they mean we're having supper tonight. Well, you join us, or you know, we'll eat everything together. That makes a lot more sense, it seems to me. But so anyway, so just this encounter, though. And then this is a two-part story. Now there's a very important thing that comes up. This is actually the story that I shared with the children a week ago. Exodus 18:13 now. The next day Moses sat as judge for the people, while the people stood around him from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, "What's this that you're doing for the people? Why do you sit alone while all the people stand around you from morning until evening?" Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another. I make known to them the statutes and instructions of God." Moses' father-in-law said to him, "What you're doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out." Literally, you will wither yourself away. "Both you and these people with you. The task is too heavy for you. You can't do that alone. Now listen to me. I'll give you counsel, and God be with you." And that could be translated, and God is with you now. God's telling you this. In other words, God's speaking through me. "You should represent the people before God, and you should bring their cases before God. Teach them the statutes and instructions, and make known to them the way they're to go, and the things they are to do. You should also look for able men among all the people, men who fear God, are trustworthy, and hate dishonest gain. Set such men over them as officers," literally as chiefs, "over thousands, chiefs over hundreds, chiefs of 50s, chiefs of 10. Let them sit as judges for the people at all times. Let them bring every important case to you, but decide every minor case themselves. So it'll be easier for you, and they'll bear the burden with you. If you do this, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all these people will go to their home in peace." So notice Moses and through Jethro, it's interesting, this doesn't come as a Jethro says, this is a word from God to you, but it doesn't come from God. Notice this is the basic structure, the basic shape of all of our American governmental society, in other words, of civil society. It's how churches organize themselves, of how they run. You should set yourself in levels of people who will have command or responsibility for, represent, will govern over this many people, over this many people, over this many people. Well, and notice that it's just interesting for the Jews, this comes from outsiders. This didn't come from the Jewish God. This came, in effect, from Jethro. He says it to him. So that's one fascinating thing. Jethro's words are like the words of God. He says, "What are you doing? What you're doing is not good." A kind of an echo of God looking at Adam all alone and saying, it's not good for the man to be alone. Well, that same phrase is here. What you're doing is not good, namely for you to be alone and try to bear the burdens for this whole crowd of people. You'll wear yourself out. I said that word is literally, you'll wither yourself, more appropriate to an agricultural society, you know, it's the word in our technological society, we would say you'll burn yourself out. But he doesn't talk about burnout. He talks about you'll wither yourself. But notice this, look for able men. In the whole story, this has been Moses' problem up to this point. The great thing about Moses is we've seen him grow in stature, and yet he's also grown in separation from the people. So he's, so to speak, grown in loneliness. He's the only one doing all this stuff on his own. And so far, in terms of the track of the story, he internally kind of has reason to keep thinking, and not only that, I'm the only one who can do any of this. Now, of course, if you've been in a situation like this, you know it's easy for you to feel like that, you know. Not only do I know this, I'm the only one who can do any of this stuff. I'm the only one who knows all these things, who can do all these things. And yet, that position puts him, it makes Moses the bottleneck. He's the reason, even though he feels like he's the only one that's making anything any better, he's also the one in trying to do this who's making everything bad. The people are coming to him, yes, and saying, Moses, you can help me, but they're stacking up. None of them are getting the help that they need. Notice the story says, and the people were not going home satisfied, or at the end, then finally they went home satisfied, meaning until this they weren't getting the relief because they can't get to Moses to get him. So Moses is wearing himself out. The people aren't getting their relief, and kind of like God talking to Elijah. You know, Elijah battles the prophets of Baal. God shows up in a spectacular way, ignites the thing, and then Elijah goes out from the end of that, and he's praying to God. He's run off because he's scared. Well, still, King Ahab's going to try to kill me. He talks to God and he says, God, I'm the only one in this whole nation that is faithful to you. And God says, Elijah, I have thousands of people who have not yet bowed the knee to Baal. I don't have to show them all to you. You know, you're not the card checker. I have these people still in Israel. So, you know, buck up. Get back to it. You're called to do your work, but you're not called to do everybody's work. Well, the same with Moses. This is not your work, Moses, he says. But notice the last group that he's not helping there are faithful people in the land who are able to do this. And notice that he tells Jethro even has the little regulations for them. This is too old, but I give you counsel. This is God talking. You are to teach the people the statutes and instructions of God. I'll say a moment about that. But also look for able men, and this is a story all about men, but notice that there are qualifications, who fear God, who are trustworthy, and who hate dishonest gain. So these things that will keep them from being... just interesting, you know, the session's been working on two things. This whole, work on it every year, but this year especially, the new Book of Order says every church is going to decide for itself about its policies. And one of the policies is then that the elders have talked about, especially as we begin a capital campaign, is, okay, how are we going to pick people who will work for us in which there will not be any conflict of interest. You know, we, the people who are on the session, don't want to be seen as, you know, oh, well, we built this new building and, you know, hey, everybody on the session really made a little bit on the side, too. Well, you know, that's the way to shred your any group, you know, is to get folks to thinking, well, I don't know if everything is on the up and up. Look for people who are trustworthy, who fear God, and who hate dishonest gain. Well, the session's been working on a policy of conflict of interest. Okay, how are we going to handle that? And then the second part of that, who are trustworthy. I was just thinking, last night we were talking at session about, okay, it's stewardship season. The main thing we have to do is, first of all, every officer has to show, I'm all in. So the officers of the church make their pledge first in order to say, listen, we're all giving to this work, so that we all know that when we ask you to do things. So anyway, it's just interesting how old this is. And Jethro is in effect saying, this wisdom, Moses, is much more ancient than you. Look for these men who fear God. You see, that's the ultimate bulwark against dishonesty and who are trustworthy and who hate dishonest gain, and set them over others. But so look for those people, Moses. You don't think they're there, but you have to fear God. And you have to trust God yourself. They are here. Okay, so now the end of that little story. 24. So Moses listened to his father-in-law and did all that he'd said. Moses chose able men from all Israel. He appointed them as heads over the people, as chiefs, a military term, as chiefs of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And they judged the people at all times. Hard cases they brought to Moses, but any minor case they decided themselves. Then Moses, our translation says, let his father depart, literally sent his father off, which just matches. Remember at the beginning of the story it said, and Moses had sent Zipporah away with her sons to her father. So now there was a sending away there. And so now at the end of this chapter, this story, Moses sends Jethro away. It's not rancor, it's just a nice little literary connecting of showing the two parts of the chapter, the story together. And he went off to his own country. All right, Exodus chapter 19. And so now we're at Mount Sinai. On the third new moon, after the Israelites had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that very day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. They had journeyed from Rephidim, remember that wonderful vacation place. They had entered the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God. Yahweh called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and you shall tell the Israelites, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession out of all the peoples. These three beautiful phrases in this next portion. You'll be my treasured possession out of all the peoples. Indeed, the whole earth is mine, but you shall be for me a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the Israelites. So here's a little preamble. Notice it begins on the third new moon, very portentous. In other words, 3 months after they had departed from Egypt. And notice, Moses goes up the mountain. We think of him, what's he doing? He's going up there to talk to God. Well, notice, God brings him up there in order to say, now go back down. He's going up there to get the message to bring down to the people. And the people will say this themselves. We don't want to go up there to God, Moses. You go up there and get us what we need to say. We'll listen to you. We don't want to. No, God scares us here at the mountain. And just the portentous nature of this, I was building this up, but all commentators say this about this being the middle, this being in a way, everything has been the dress rehearsal up to this. And this moment now, the people on the brink of the mountain, of Moses getting ready to go down to the people, of God getting ready to come down on this is like all of those moments in our lives that every one of us has had at think about the time when you're in if you're in a play and you're standing, you've done all the rehearsing and the curtain is there and you're thinking, this is it. Or the ball team that's behind the door and thinking, we're going out there now, we're going to try to break the piece of paper and run out onto the football field and everybody's going to, it's all starting right now. Well, that's where the people of Israel are now. Everything, this is in Moses' life with Yahweh has now come full circle. Remember, Yahweh said to him, here at the burning bush, I'm sending you to the Pharaoh, and you will know that I am Yahweh, your God, when you worship me on this mountain, in this place. I will bring you, all of you, back to here. So now he's here. This is the here of heres. They're really here. And this is what the covenant encounter. It's not a new covenant that God is making when God describes, if my people will obey my covenant. He's not saying, I'm making a new one with you today. He's saying, this covenant is the deepening of my covenant, the covenant I started with Abraham. That covenant's going to last forever. So this covenant is the building on that one, is the deepening of that one. But so all of the things that I've been talking about, my remembering has come here. And we have this beautiful language now that goes throughout the rest of the scriptures. You've seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings. Well, now notice, it's just a pure image. when did God swoop down and grab the Israelites and throw him on his back or on his wings and carry them off? Well, you know, it's a metaphor, it's a picture, but it's a picture that continues. It's a picture that we read at the end of in Isaiah 40. Those who trust in the Lord, they will mount up with wings as eagles. This picture of being nestled under and it's just interesting, the so to speak, biblical bird, the king of the birds in the Bible's frame anyway, is the eagle. And it's a legendary thing. One of the commentators says, we're still waiting for this to be shown that eagles are really good parents to and all these things that the image says. But this is the image that's planted here in the Bible, that the eagle is such a strong mother and so, cares for them. But anyway, this picture continues on. For instance, just take your Bible, just go over a little bit to at the end of the Torah, to Deuteronomy 32. 32. This is a so-called Song of Moses, a little piece of poetry of Moses's at his end of the journey, kind of like the Song of Miriam back in Exodus 15. But he's talking about the faithful God. Look at verse 7. Remember the days of old, consider of years long past. Deuteronomy 32:7. Ask your father, he'll inform you. The elders will tell you. When the Most High apportioned the nations, he divided humankind. He fixed the boundaries of the peoples. The Lord's own portion was his people. We'll come back to that image. Jacob his allotted share. He sustained him in the desert in a howling wilderness waste. He shielded him, cared for him, guarded him as the apple of the eye. Another beautiful psalm phrase that we see. But here it is, verse 11. As an eagle stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, as it spreads its wings, takes them up and bears them aloft on its pinions. The Lord alone guided him. No foreign God was with him. He set him atop the heights of the land, fed him with the produce of the field. Well, so just that picture of the Lord as the mother eagle and he's carrying his people. And we have that here in Exodus 19:4. You remember how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, beautiful little picture. Remember Jesus saying, kind of a very similar image, Jesus standing outside of Jerusalem and weeping and saying, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I would have gathered you as a hen, as a mother hen, and gathers her chicks and beneath her wings." So this image of the mothering bird and the eagle being sort of the king of the birds. One commentator says it's not all that flattering an image. It exalts God, but like all the Bible, it says of Israel, well, Israel's always a little baby chick that can't fly on her own, so has to be carried around by the big mama. So, but, that is the Bible picture. God is everything, and we are wholly dependent upon Him. Then this second, or these three phrases. You, Israel, if you keep my covenant, will be my treasured possession. You'll be a priestly kingdom for me and a holy nation. You'll be my treasured possession. Segula is the word for a personal treasure of a king. And a couple of interesting places. Look in 1 Chronicles. So go to the back of, let's see, where's 1 Chronicles? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Keep going. Samuel, Kings. Remember the twos? 1 and 2 Samuel. Keep going. 1 and 2 Kings. And the next book is 1 Chronicles. So 1 Chronicles, chapter at the very end, 29. This is King David. He's talking about his son. King David said to the whole assembly, "My son Solomon, whom God has chosen, is young and inexperienced. The work is great, for the temple won't be for mortals, but is for the Lord God. So I have provided," says David, "for the house of my God. I provided gold." Now he's talking about, these are things that belong to the nation, but I've sort of used the national treasury and I've apportioned these things out. I provided gold, I provided silver, I provided bronze. See, just keep going, iron and wood. And then look down in verse 3. Moreover, in addition to all those things, those are the national things, says David. But then David says, I'm the king. I also have my own personal wealth. And here's out of my personal store, I have also given to this great project, the temple. In addition to all that I provided for the holy house, I have a treasure of my own, gold and silver, and because of my devotion to the house of my God, I give it to the house of God. All I want you to see is that word there. David says, we have the national treasury, that's one thing, but I have a personal treasure of my own, and I'm giving now out of that. That word treasure is this same word, segula. You will become my treasure, says God. Now just notice the picture of that. God says, everything belongs to me. This whole world is my big bank. I made this world. It all belongs to me. But there are certain little things on it. It's just a beautiful personal picture of God. God says, but you know, there are some things in this world that I just look on them like you look on your grandchildren. They just make me smile. They just make me happy. And I think, you're my little treasure. And God says, you're here, Israel, because I've chosen you. And I've heard your cry. If you hear my call to you and keep my covenant, you will be my treasured people among all the peoples of the earth. See, everybody will belong to me. Yes, I'll treat everybody. I'm going to be their God. But there will be some people that I'll look at and go, you know, like Grandpa does to the little, there's some people that you, as a little boy or little girl, you just look at, and you think, every time they look at me, did he wink at me? Did he wink at me? And you don't even know, well, that's my special person, you just think, that fellow always winks at me when he looks at me. And, and then that says, yeah, because you're my treasure. That's what God is saying of Israel. You will be my treasured possession out of all the peoples of the earth. Indeed, the whole earth is mine. That's right, says God. But you shall be for me, and now this double phrase, a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. In a way, if we ask, what does God want? What does God want from us? What does God want from anybody? What does God want? And the answer is this phrase. God's idea when He first made the first human being was, I want to make creatures who will be animals. But instead of, we were at a party Saturday night, and the dogs in the house, they're just perfectly lovely dogs, and they just look, everybody's getting a plate and sitting down, and the dogs, every person who sits down, they look at, and that plate gets finished, the dogs, just turns, and, you are my best friend, I love you, I can't wait to be with, you are so special, you're done? Okay, good, and they're, as I said, they're lovely dogs, but God's idea was, could I make creatures that have a spirit in them? And they would fasten that spirit on me. Angie and I have been reading this very interesting book by a North Carolina neurologist. And he had this near-death experience in which he says, all of the things my prefrontal cortex was wiped out, and it was being eaten up by bacteria, and I should have died. But instead, I went somewhere, and as a doctor, I didn't even think this was possible, and I pitied people who would tell me experiences like this. He said, and suddenly I just had this encounter, and I went to this place, and he describes it at great length, and he says, and I came back, and now my problem is, how can I tell other doctors so they'll believe me? They'll just think, oh, you've become one of the saps, one of the poor people, those poor sympathetic little suckers who, have had this hallucinatory. He says, it wasn't that. He says, I went to the reality of realities, and I realized this is present to every person on the planet, if only they could see it. That's the dream in God's heart, and it's right here in this sentence. When I made you, Israel, I chose you and I saved you so that you would be my special treasure among all the peoples, and you would be, out of all the peoples on the earth, a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. And what does a priestly kingdom mean? It means the way that all of us expect the priest to be. Well, that's a person who's shut everything else so they can be completely devoted to God. God says, yeah, and that's what I made everybody to be. What I'm working for, says God, is to take away all those other distractions, all those other things that keep people from thinking they have any other reason to be here. I want human beings who in a spiritual way will be like that dog, just going, there you are, God. I can't get enough of you. I'm just waiting for the next thing you'll give to me. I can't wait for it. I can't wait. I'm right here. Look at me. I'm on point. And we'll do that with all their lives. And it's just interesting. This doctor has that experience now. He says, suddenly, I realize every single thing. He was a terrible, he was a C&E Christian, he says before that. Now he says, I went to church after this experience. We sat in the front row because that was the only space that was left. That's what he said. He said, the guy came up to me and he said, the priest came up and he said, it's Advent. Do you want to light the second candle for Advent? He said, I'd never done that before, but I said, sure, why not? He said, I took the candle and I lit it. He said, as I looked around, I saw all these things and every one of them just started speaking to me. He said, when I came up for communion, he said, my eyes were just an open fountain. I was just tearing, crying about everything. Suddenly, the whole universe was just open to me. This is God's dream on the brink of, we got to go on, I'm sorry. But, this is the most important sentence in the Bible in a way. Of course they all are. But this is God opening up his heart and saying, and that's why he says to Moses, go down there and tell them this. This is the preliminary to all those other things. This is my dream. This is why I made the world. And one day it will be like this. One beautiful phrase a guy says, the Israelites have to learn what's holy. And the only knowledge that they have for what holy, the word holy itself means separated. And they have to learn how to be, that holy doesn't mean separated from. And that's the danger. That's what Jesus sees in the Pharisees. That you're holy means you put everybody else off. You hold them all out at a distance. But what the people of God have to learn is, what does it mean to be separated toward? And in this case, separated to God. Then if you're separated to God, then everything else becomes available because it's all from God. And so you're in it in a completely different way. And so the people have to learn, Israel has to learn this, that they're supposed to be holy, not among the not holy. They're supposed to be the holy people among the not yet holy. And this is their life. They're supposed to be the people who are leading others to holiness, who are not using their holiness as a stick to beat on everybody else who's not them, but who is leading everyone else to be holy, the not yet holy. It's funny, this fellow's name is Eben Alexander. The book's called Proof of Heaven. And but then after he has this experience, he puts this quote at the beginning of the chapter from Albert Einstein. And Einstein says, in the end, there are only two options. You can live as if nothing is a miracle, or you must live as if everything is a miracle. And that's his description of himself. Suddenly I just see that just having a brain that works connects you to everything that God has done in making the world. But of course, here's the big if. Notice right before all those special things, my treasured possession, a priestly kingdom, a holy nation. Notice the sentence before that. Now, therefore, says God, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant. Well, there's the big thing. That's the sentence of the gap. And that's what Israel's going to be working on. That's their plan. And that's what all of the prophets will be about that. All of the prophets will be people who've gotten bonged on the head by God and saying, we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Look at the gap between what God called us to do and what we're doing. That's what being a prophet is. And of course, that's the vision that's in the New Testament as well. That's what Paul is saying in Romans 12, 1 and 2. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. He's saying that experience is available, but everything can only change when, and then this beautiful phrase, right back to here, says Paul, present your bodies to God as a living sacrifice so that you may test out, prove the will of God, what's acceptable and perfect. So all the New Testament is on the track of saying Christ and the presence of His Spirit has given us, has opened the door to minding this gap and filling it. Okay, let's go on. Verse 7. So Moses came He summoned the elders of the people, and he set before them all these words that Yahweh had commanded him. The people all answered as one, everything that Yahweh has spoken, we will do. Moses reported the words of the people to Yahweh. Now, God doesn't need Moses to tell him that, but he's in effect strengthening Moses, as we'll see in the next sentence. Then Yahweh said to Moses, I'm going to come to you in a dense cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so trust you ever after. When Moses had told the words of the people to Yahweh, Yahweh said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. He's coming down the third day. Have them wash their clothes, literally their cloaks, and prepare for the third day, because on the third day Yahweh will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. You shall set limits for the people all around, saying, be careful not to go up to the mountain or to touch the edge of it. Any who touch the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch them, but they'll be stoned or shot with arrows. Whether animal or human being, they shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they may go up to the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people. He consecrated the people. They washed their clothes. And he said, prepare for the third day. Don't go near a woman. Now notice Moses added that one himself. He says, well, now we're all trying to keep focused here. So Moses added that one, though. That wasn't God's word. That was Moses. So now it's a little self-confession, I think, from Moses. But notice, go and consecrate the people. Set before them all these words. Interesting. Devarim is the word of the commandments. They are the words, the 10 words. So here's a little looking forward. You set before them these words. Why? Because I'm about to come down. What's he going to do? He's going to set before them the big words, the 10 words, before all the people. I'm going to come down in a cloud. Notice God is saying, Moses, I'm going to make sure that these people listen to you, and that I'm raising your respect level, basically. Consecrate all the people. Why does he say to them, well, he is saying focus, but also then notice he says, wash their clothes. And as I said, it's not the normal word for clothes. That word is begadim, for garment. He says, have them wash their cloaks. Semalot. Now remember, where did they get their cloaks? The Egyptians gave them to them, remember. So they're wearing this cloak of the idol-worshiping Egyptians. Yeah, so when God says, you get perfectly ready for me, he in effect consecrates their time, 2 days, and all the space around them, set apart the mountain too, set limits on the mountain. But then he also he says, even their clothing, how they appear to me, you see, wash their cloaks. And the point is, yeah, wash that paganism off of you. Wash that, any connection to that idol-worshiping crowd off of you. So wash even the cloaks that they brought with them from Egypt, you know. And so now here's the encounter, verse 16. On the mountain, on the morning of the third day, and again, just think about, you know, what's the third day for us? Resurrection day. Well, we ought always to hear this connection in the Israelite history. That third day is the day of God's revelation, when God Himself came down on top of the mountain. So, on the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning, as well as a thick cloud on the mountain, and a blast of a trumpet so loud that all the people who were in the camp trembled. Now here's a good question. Where'd that trumpet come from? Somebody has a suggestion. Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God. They stood at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke, because Yahweh had descended upon it in fire. The smoke went up like the smoke of a kiln. So, while the whole mountain shook violently, Robert Alter says, because in this point, you see, heaven and earth are literally coming together. So you have these celestial signs, the lightning and the thunder, and now even the mountain, the earthly sign, is itself shaking. So everything is shaking. Why? Because now the presence of God is literally coming together and smushing them together. The whole mountain shook as the blast of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Moses would speak, God would answer him in thunder. When Yahweh descended upon Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, Yahweh summoned Moses to the top of the mountain. Then Moses went up. Then Yahweh said to Moses, go down, warn the people not to break through to Yahweh to look. Otherwise, many of them will perish. Now, this is an interesting thing. Yahweh says this over and over. And in effect, Moses has to say to him, you already told us that. But it gets done 3 times, which is the way to emphasize anything. Even the priests who approach Yahweh must consecrate themselves, or Yahweh will break out against them. Moses said to Yahweh, the people aren't permitted to come up to Mount Sinai. See, you told us that. You yourself warned us, saying, set limits around the mountain, keep it holy. Yahweh said, go down and come up, bringing Aaron with you. He hasn't been able to come up before. But don't let either the priests or the people break through to come up to the Lord. Otherwise, he will break out against them. So Moses went down and came up to the people. Now, we've been reading in Hebrews and here is a great place. So now just think of the people, and they continue just to be scared to pieces off of this. Turn back to Hebrews chapter 12, and one of the book of Hebrews is reflecting all through it about what's the difference? What is the new in the new covenant? Hebrews chapter 12. But he reflects on exactly this moment of Exodus 19. 18. He's talking about now that Jesus has come and the change that it's made. 18. You have not come to something that can be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest and the sound of a trumpet. What's he talking about? He's talking about this moment in Exodus 19. You have not come to the place where a voice whose words made the hearers beg that not another word be spoken to them. They couldn't endure the order that was given. Even if an animal touches the mountain, it'll be stoned to death. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you, Christians, have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God the judge of all, and the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. You've come to the assembly of the firstborn. Remember, that's Jesus, but he gives it to everyone. To God the judge, to Jesus the mediator of a new covenant, and to sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than even the poured out blood of Abel. Just a wonderful comparison and a way to say, this is great. Okay, we have 2 minutes to read the whole of the 10 Commandments. But that's great, because we're going to begin right here next week, so we won't lose anything. But let's just do it. It's chapter 20, just here. Then God spoke all these words, I am Yahweh your God. Notice it begins not with, do this. It begins with, let me remind you what I've done and who I am and who you are. I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. That's number one. Notice nothing in here says these are 10 commandments. You shall not make for yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that's in the heaven above, or that's in the earth beneath, or that's in the water under the earth. Now remember, they've just come out from the Egyptians. They're going to the Canaanites. The Egyptians and Canaanites share a whole panoply of gods. And they have gods for every one of these things. So Yahweh says, I'm the God of the whole shebang. I'm the God of the heavens. Well, there Baal is a god of the heavens and of the land. And I am the God of, notice, don't make an idol of anything that's on the earth beneath. Well, there's a god, Baal is of the land, of the earth beneath, or even of the water under the earth. There are under gods. Baal over the sky and the land. Yam is a god over the sea. Mot over the underworld. Just notice that all of them are God. Yahweh is saying, no, I belong to all those. And read Philippians 2, 5 through 11. God says, because of the obedience of Jesus and the sacrifice that He made, therefore, at the very end of that little poem, therefore God has given Him the name that's above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee in heaven and on earth and under the earth. So God says here at Mount Sinai, those things all belong to me. And then in Philippians says, and I give those all to my faithful Son, the firstborn. So just a beautiful little connection. You shall not make yourself an idol. That's number 2. For I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God, punishing children for the iniquity of parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who reject me, but showing steadfast love, my hesed, to the 1000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. So no other gods, no idols. You shall not make wrongful use of the name of Yahweh your God, for Yahweh will not acquit anyone who misuses His name. 4th, remember the Sabbath day. Notice the first one that's expressed positively, and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th is a Sabbath to Yahweh your God. Now here's a not. You shall not do any work. You, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns. But notice the connection. The Sabbath is the way you recreate, you join the creation story. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heaven and the earth and the sea, all that's in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the 7th and consecrated it. The 5th, another positive one, the only 2 positive ones right in the middle. Honor your father and mother, so that your days may be long in the land that Yahweh your God is giving you. One interesting little thing I read, and I'd never thought about this before. Notice that the command to honor your father and your mother is a command to grown-ups and not to children. Listen again. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that Yahweh's giving to you. He's talking to the people right in front of him. He's not talking to, listen up little kids. He's talking to the grown-ups. So in other words, this is the Alzheimer's verse. Right in the middle of the 10 Commandments. Honor your parents, grown-ups. I thought that hit me like a brick. I just thought that was great. And it's right there. Notice the next 3. No murder, they literally are expressed like this. Just 2 words, only 3 syllables, each one of them. No murder, no adultery, no stealing. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's male or female slave, your neighbor's ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, we'll talk about the structure of the whole thing next week, but I want you to just notice one other thing. I thought this was great. We've always talked about the first 4 are relations to God. The last 6 are relations to people. Notice that the first 5 have as their recurring refrain, the Lord your God. In the last 6, in the last 5 from verse 13 on, there's no reference to God at all. In other words, they're all about how you take care of people. And notice that the first phrase in there is Yahweh your God, and the last phrase is your neighbor. The first and last words are Yahweh your God and your neighbor. So just a neat little... well, we'll start right there next week and talk about and start with the 10 Commandments and see if we can get away at all. We might not be able to, but we'll try. But we'll go through them really a lot more explicitly. Of course, this is the thing. We have another mountain of material that have been poured out about the 10 Commandments, and that's a good thing. So let's close for today. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for opening up to us this world-changing encounter, and especially this time when you came down to encounter the people of earth, as you came down in terror and came down quaking the earth. So we praise you, Lord Jesus, for that time you came again, calmly and quietly in the middle of the night, wonderfully and affably as a sweet baby, so that we might draw close to you where we had feared previously, so that we might listen to you eagerly, and so that we might watch you and learn from you in every day of the life that you spent here on this earth with us. Lord Jesus, bless us. Thank you for the riches of this, your word, and help us to grow as your people in every way. Help us to go from here and to share your love in all that we do, for we pray in your wonderful name. Amen.